Hey guys, Becky here, 52 Baker. Welcome back to my channel. So this week we're going to work on making a stained glass cake, the actual painting and piping, and because we're painting on fondant, I do recommend you have a good set of watercolor brushes. Doesn't have to be anything expensive. The ones that I use are linked down below. And I also recommend you have a good royal icing recipe. If you work with buttercream and you have something that's smooth and stiff and you like, definitely stick with that. I just happen to prefer royal icing. Now, stained glass, as with all cake decorating, you can go a bunch of different ways with it. So I've partnered up with a few different YouTube channels to share with you guys different stained glass cakes and different ways to make them. Do go check them out after this. But for now, let's get right to it. Okay, so to start off, I'm just going to use very faint colors to give me an outline of what it is that I want to draw and where I want the placement of everything to go. With this painting, because I'm doing stained glass and I'll be piping, I'm not going to focus so much on detail. I'm going to try to give the branch some movement, the leaves a little bit of movement, but I'm not going to go into super detail because that would just be very difficult for me to pipe. Now, once I have my outline and I'm ready to color, the first thing I want to do is my base colors. So some leaves will be orange, others will be yellow, others will be green. I make sure to set that color in fully, and then I go ahead and start blending them. A little bit of green onto the yellow, a little bit of yellow onto the orange, and so on, so that my leaves look a little bit more ombre. And it looks like all of the leaves are going through that beautiful autumn change. I also go ahead and add different saturations within the leaves, making some areas a little darker, some a little brighter or lighter, so that it looks like the whole stained glass effect where the light is shining in and some parts are just very bright. When I'm doing my branch, I start out light and thin because it's a darker color, and so it's always easier to add on than it is to take off. And once I'm happy with the shape, then I go ahead and where the branches connect, I make them a bit thicker. I darken in the main branch a bit more than the branch is extending now, all of that. And then any extra brown that I have on my brush, I go ahead and add to my leaves so that they look a bit like they are aging. Now, for the background of my cake, I didn't want to leave it just white, but I also didn't want to take too much away from all of the color and the image that I have going on. So I'm just going to go with a light dusty blue, just to give it something without taking away from the other beautiful bright colors that we have going on. For the piping, I'm using a number 2 piping tip. I'm going with a very small piping tip because I want to be able to show all of the leaves without covering it with the black icing. Now, if you're like me and your hand is not super steady, I totally recommend having a damp, flat brush with you so that every few strokes of icing that you do, you can pause and go ahead and smooth out with your brush any imperfections, push anything back in place if it's out of place, all of that. This here is probably the hardest part of the cake, is just outlining all of the details. So definitely think about that before you decide on an image. The more detailed the image is, the harder it is to pipe. So just a heads up. I will, however, say having the image on here already and just outlining it, I find is much easier than going in and piping an image from your head and then coloring it in afterwards, trying to not damage the outline that you just made. That's just how I work. I find this method to be easier. Now, once you're done outlining all of your image, you can leave it this way and it would look absolutely beautiful, but I like adding the whole stained glass to the background. So what I do is I take the ends of my image, say the ends of the leaves or the ends of the branches, and I just drag them out, or I drag them to meet an other end on the image. I'm not sure if that's exactly how all stained glass works, but from what I've seen, I think that's how it works, so that's what I do. This is the easiest part because you can't go wrong with this. Wherever your hand leads you, that is what you do, and you just cannot go wrong. If you feel you went in the wrong direction, go with it anyway and it'll work out. Also, on my final cake, I ended up piping a border to make it look a little more polished. You can take this image all the way around. I just chose not to. All I have is a front image so that it goes with my toppers. And that's it. You have a beautiful stained glass cake, and you can finally give your hands a well-deserved break. Alright guys, hopefully your hands are not hurting as much as mine were. As always, if you have any questions, do drop them down in the comments below and I'll make sure to get back to you. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. That would mean so much to me. And if you're interested in how I made the cake toppers, there's a quick tiny little tutorial link down below. Do go check that out, and I will see you guys next time.